hey Instagram, this is a post about guilt trips because it's Good Friday and you might have some family that are wanting to use some guilt trips on you. So guilt trips are only going to work if you feel guilty about something. So here's how to get out of a guilt trip. So the first thing is, if you squeeze an orange, you're always going to get orange juice because what comes out is what's inside. So if you have guilt about something inside, then someone can use that against you with this guilt trip. So here's what you can do. If you're feeling guilty about something, you're assuming that the thing that you're feeling guilty about has caused somebody outside of you more drawbacks or more pains than benefits or pleasures or services. So you're assuming that you've caused a negative about a positive. But the reality is you can't cause a negative about a positive because they both come together. So it's just that you're consciously aware of the negative that you've caused them, but you're unconscious of the positive that you've caused them. And so because you're conscious of the negative and you're unconscious of the positive, you're feeling guilty and you feel like you've done them more harm than good. But the reality is you can't do one without the other. So if you ask the question, how has whatever I think I've done to them that's been a bad thing, how has it benefited them? How has it been a service to them? How has it served them? What do they learn from it? What do they got out of it? What you can do is you can realize all of the unconscious positives towards them. And as soon as you see whatever you did towards them gave them just as many benefits as drawbacks, your guilt dissolves. And now the guilt trip is ineffective because you see that you've given them both sides, positive and negative. So you can look at guilt as a feedback to let you know that you're only seeing one side of the situation. You're only seeing half the picture. You're not seeing the full picture. You think you've caused the person more disservice than service. And so you want to ask that question to rebalance your perspective on it and see how it actually served them. And then when you do, you dissolve the guilt. It's not there anymore. But the other thing with guilt is if you don't go and dissolve anything you feel guilty for, you're going to then go and compensate for that guilt because you feel bad. You're going to go do something to feel better about it. So you might go and do something altruistic where you're giving away your time or giving away your money. A great example of this is if you're playing a team sport and let's say you lose the ball, all of a sudden you have this burst of energy and you'll go grab the ball again off the opponent. And it's like, where did that energy come from? Well, you feel guilty because you let the team down. And so then all of a sudden you've got the energy to go grab the ball again. It's a compensation mechanism. So I hope that all made sense. If any of it was unclear, send me a question and I'll answer it for you. This is a good question because remember, guilt is your perception of the situation. It's not the situation itself. Because sometimes you'll feel guilty about doing something and you talk to the person you did it to and they don't really care. There's not really any judgment from them on the situation. So remember, guilt is your own internal perception of how you feel about the situation. So then the only question to remain is, why carry around the guilt if it's just a perception? So it doesn't matter whether the person you have the guilt towards is dead or alive, you're just working with your own perception here. So if you ask yourself that question, how does whatever I did that I feel caused more harm or more pain or more drawback to this person, how did my action actually benefit or serve them? What it does is it dissolves your own perception of guilt, which is kind of like an illusion anyway. And as soon as you dissolve that perception of guilt, you're not feeling guilty towards them. And you can just move on with your life. And it doesn't have to kind of follow you around and affect you. But this is a cool question because I was working with a lady last week that had this exact situation. She felt guilty because she wasn't there when her mum passed away. She wasn't at the hospital at the deathbed. And so she was carrying around this guilt, I should have been there when my mum died. And then when I was working with her, we asked her a question that she never asked herself before. How did me not being at my mum's deathbed when she passed away, how is it a benefit or a service to my mum? Once she asked that question, she realized that, hey, there was just as many benefits of me not being there because there was all these reasons why the mum wanted to be pass away in private or whatever it was. And so once she realized that and she got rid of the guilt, that was something that she was carrying around for years. And just by asking the right question, she dissolves that guilt, which was her own perception anyway, and she moves on with her life. So that was kind of a cool example of this exact question. So that feeling of guilt at the end of the day is just a feedback to let you know that, hey, you've got a lopsided perception right now. Go back, ask the right question, rebalance your perception, and you can move on. It's gone and it's over with. And you move on with your life.